All right, welcome back, everybody. We're going to jump straight into it. I have here Stephen Fromkin. And when it comes to soft skills, learning can be hard. Listening, social awareness, conflict resolution, there are so many things that books and videos can really only do so much to teach. Sometimes what you really need is something more akin to real life. And that's where Stephen Fromkin and his company Tailspin step in. Having recently rolled out VR training to over 60,000 employees, Stephen knows a thing or two about the art of soft skill learning and the role that VR plays in it. Here to share his knowledge, school is back in session with Stephen Fromkin.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks for everyone for being here. Very happy to talk to you today. Thank you, Scott. So VR training is demonstrating some great results already, but it is not without significant forethought toward the users or the learner's experience. I'm excited to share how, with the principles of deliberate practice, we are seeing greater acceleration to proficiency of skill and of capabilities. Let's take a moment real quick to level set on what I mean by deliberate practice. This gentleman, Anders Ericsson, in 1993, a psychologist, a researcher, and an expert on expertise, published a paper which detailed how practice can hasten the effectiveness of learning and even mastery. Quoting David Epstein in his obituary for Ericsson, who passed away in 2020, he said, "It is safe to say it is the most influential paper on modern skills development." This research and subsequent findings included the 10,000 hour rule, which many of you may have heard of or read about in Malcolm Gladwell's 2004 book Outliers, or in the song 10,000 Hours from Macklemore. The moral of this anecdote is that while researchers and learning experts and psychologists have continued to evolve what deliberate practice truly means, and will continue to do so, they will continue to refine how we best learn and gain this mastery, gain this expertise. It is still currently, as you see in the 2020 Forbes article entitled, "Why Corporate Learning Needs Ericsson's Deliberate Practice More Than Ever." In other words, David Epstein was right. Ericsson put a stake in the ground, as he said, that all practice is not equal. So what is deliberate practice? If it's so important, what is it? In this white box are some of the attributes of deliberate practice. This box is going to reappear throughout the presentation. You're going to see that the bullets may be highlighted or may be grayed out. When they're highlighted, that's going to indicate that it's pertinent to either the use case or the aspect of our platform that I may be talking about. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to track. So let's talk about Tailspin real quick and what we're building. Let's start by talking about the problem that we're trying to solve, right? Across the globe, there is a mismatch of workforce needs, workforce skills. This top statistic from World Economic Forum, we need to reskill more than 1 billion people by 2030. From a workforce skills point of view, experts saw this coming, but the speed of disruption has only been exacerbated by the global pandemic and the subsequent paradigm shifts. Add to this some economic uncertainty, unfortunately, and the inequity and lack of access to effective learning, and we have a lot of work to do. We, the human race, need to up the game on how we learn, how we train, how we upskill, cross-skill, reskill. And so this is where Tailspin is trying to make a difference. We view ourselves as a skills mobility company who's building an ecosystem that provides skills on demand. But what does skills mobility mean? Well, what we are really focused on is being a real-time, which I think a lot of folks here considering we're speaking of the metaverse, we understand real time and spatial first. We're building a real time and spatial first approach to talent development and talent mobility. So think of having a skill. Think of how that skill can be attached to you and persist wherever you go in the metaverse, and how that skill, that verified block, building block, or everything that's attached to it, how that can follow you to your employer, your next employer, or be verified by somebody who might be interested in you. Our platform therefore breaks down into sort of these three pillars. We are able to create and enable others to create immersive learning content. We've built a content tool that we'll talk about a little bit, which is a no-code authoring tool to allow others to create custom content that would publish to either VR or to desktop streaming, which we'll talk about a little bit further. And underneath it all, again, we're talking about skills and training and verification. Underneath it all is a skills insight platform. Very crucial. We'll get to that even further. But now I want to show you, as we go back to that white box, these attributes by design are hit by all of the pillars of the platform. We're being very purposeful in how we're building content, how we're building the ecosystem to really make a difference in how we train, how we learn, how we gain expertise, Erickson. But what do we mean by immersive? Because this is another term that gets thrown. What is immersive? Compared to the metaverse, compared to outside of the metaverse? Well, our learning content is not only consumable by XR, by VR and AR and MR, but it's also consumable based on desktop streaming, because the adoption of headsets and a lot of the technology just isn't there yet. So while VR and AR are greatly adding to the experience of learning, hastening the proficiency to a skill, we can't wait, and neither can those billions of people who need upskilling. Even outside of the headset, the high level of interactivity enhances the learning opportunities. Immersive content. So that was one of the pillars. We have a growing library of content focused on leadership, management, communication, soft skills, as we heard Scott talk about. There's several reasons why we focused here. I'm not going to unpack all of that now, but that's largely the focus of what's in our library. We've done a lot of stuff in hard skills too. We'll talk about those use cases in a bit. But as you can see, what we're really finding effective is being able to be individually focused in these learning opportunities, being purposeful and systematic. In other words, the learning activities, the learning program or curriculum is very purposeful and systematic toward events for learning that build upon each other. We're making sure it's being designed by learning practitioners, SMEs, folks that we have internally and elsewhere. The experience is obviously interactive. It relies on self-guided rehearsal. So again, deliberate practice. There has to be practice, repeated practice, but not mind-numbing repeated practice. And of course, this requires feedback. Practice without the feedback, without a mentor, a teacher, a peer providing some sort of feedback, isn't really going to have that forward movement that Erickson is talking about. So therein lies what some of our immersive content is capable of. We're also empowering others to build using CoPilot Designer. CoPilot Designer is a tool that a lot of folks who have used authoring tools would be familiar with. You start a project, you pick some environments, you pick some virtual humans, you pick voice fonts, you set up your project, and then using a node-based interface, you begin to build a branch narrative. Within that branch narrative, you can build pre-assessments, lessons, or post-assessments, which is where the scoring happens. That scoring is connected to that underlying skills platform, okay? After that branch narrative is built, the author would go into the timeline portion of the tool, the timeline interface, and based on those virtual humans that were picked, based on those voice fonts, be able to adjust the energy, the gesture, the emotion of that virtual human's performance. It also allows for a voiceover performance to be imported so that you're not just using sort of the text-to-speech, more sort of robotic, less emotional voices. So you bring some of that life out from a voice actor. Skills insights. We can, within our tool, either use either customize skills or use the skills that are preloaded. What that connects to is the scoring that comes out of the module now, or out of the individual experiences. The skills platform, the insights that we're able to capture are well beyond what the traditional legacy learning management systems can capture. We are able to track attempts. We are able to track the decision points across all sorts of different metrics. And that is really where some of the ability for a coach or a mentor to come back in, review, and then tune the next stage of learning comes in. So through a web-based dashboard, an employee's manager or learning practitioner can go and see the performance of either a group, the whole company, or an individual, and decide, you know what, Stephen is challenged here, or Stephen's doing really well here. Let's adjust the learning and republish something for him to continue. Coaching and feedback from an experiential point of view. CoPilot Designer enables virtual coaching, meaning as you write the branch narrative, as an author writes the branch narrative, a lesson can provide immediate feedback that allows the learner to understand that they made the wrong choice, that they should try again. Likewise, at the end of a piece of content, at the end of a learning experience, which we call a module, there's immediate feedback in the form of as you see in the bottom right there, immediate feedback that is a culmination of statistics on, and both quantitative and qualitative, on how that learner performed in that given module. Again, you can refer to the little white box along the way, right? One other thing I want to talk about a little bit is where it goes. We can do all that now. So where does some of this go? This is only scratching the surface. And I know, a lot of what we're thinking about, all of us, regards to where metaverse technology, the opportunities, only scratching the surface. But we're seeing companies like Engage, or we're seeing experiences like in Horizon workrooms, which provide collaboration. That collaboration is going to hasten that mentoring, that coaching, or the group work that is very important. Likewise, the underlying skills platform, all of that data can really get us toward what might be, you've probably heard people talk about a skills wallet, or a skills profile, or a skills-based avatar. That's what I was referring to earlier, in which your skills, verified, move with you. That's talent mobility, skills mobility. A couple of quick use cases that I'd like to refer to before my time's up. From a hard skills point of view, very early on, in 2017, Farmers Insurance was one of our very first enterprise customers. We built a couple of experiences for them to further to help claims adjusters, claims inspectors reach proficiency quicker. That was the goal. You can read some of the stats along the side there. But essentially what we built was an experience in which the user gets a mission brief says, here's some damage, you got to go figure it out. Well, they didn't know what they were going to get, because within that was a randomized experience of 6 different residential environments, 30 different leak sources, hundreds, actually thousands of different textures and materials that would interact with the water damage. And they had to navigate 19 different decision points that would be pertinent if they were actually out in the field inspecting a residence that had a slab leak or a faucet leak or a tub leak or a water tank leak. Really fantastic results. A self-guided experience. But they also found ways to use it by casting and sharing results and providing feedback real time. We then decided that we would build with them an AR experience. The goal was to replace or complement the lab or facility-based learning, where an instructor would bring adjusters through a series of life-size dioramas, basically, right? Just like this one. It's just like this virtual one. In mixed reality with a collaborative capability, we enabled the instructor to provide the same experience, actually one that was even a little bit more engaging and allowed the learners to be pretty much anywhere. Also extremely successful and is continued to be used today. As we talked about some of the soft skills, that's really where things started to accelerate. In 2019, we built this. We built a couple of different experiences. One of which was used in a PwC study. Actually, the data was released, or the study was done in 2019. We built it a little bit before. Aside from VR, there were 2 other training modalities that were used and compared to VR. And I would say that this study had really proved even beyond what we thought was possible with the virtual human experiences for communication that we were building. 4 times faster than in the classroom. You can obviously read some of the stats along the way, but really quite exciting and effective. I know I'm a little bit short on time, so I'm going to kind of move quicker. Last one I'd like to just highlight was sort of a bit of a surprise to us. So we saw a lot of the learning really working, really going well based on how we were building, based on this idea of deliberate practice, the framework of deliberate practice. We were approached by the Skills Immersion Lab from Jobs for the Future, along with SAP, who said they wanted to use some of our workforce content, mentoring, effective feedback content, right? How to mentor or provide effective feedback to a subordinate. They wanted to use that for 14 to 18-year-olds students. Well, it wasn't built for them. They said, we understand, we want to try it. And as you can see from the statistics here, even though it was workplace content, workplace scenarios that students really had no context about or knowledge about, they were so engaged that we have now gone into a second and coming up a third phase that further explores how students of this age can not only engage in the metaverse, not through just learning, but how it can think about it from a career progression point of view. So quick thought, here's a quote. I love a quote. I'm a sucker for a quote. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Now, while I'm not suggesting, and Tailspin is not suggesting, that traditional learning should be obsolete, there's so much still that is really important. What I would encourage is that as creators in the metaverse, as creators for the metaverse, you consider what difference we're going to make together. Because I think that is one of the most exciting things. That is what we believe is one of the most exciting things that this technology has to offer. Thanks so much. Thanks Dimension X. Thanks Scott, Chris, and everybody. Really, really wonderful to have the opportunity to speak to everybody. I'm going to try to stick around and check some of those questions.
Yes, we have quite a few of them, so please feel free to stick around and answer them. Thank you so much, Stephen, for your time. Everybody hold tight. We're going to do a quick turn as fast as we can to get Eric Hansen in here. Thank you, Stephen, for your time.
Thanks.